Hello and welcome to Peter's Principles. As you know, we never know who we're going to have on Peter's Principles, and today we have school committee woman Jackie Doherty. Jackie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Jim. Okay. Thanks for inviting me.
A few questions. I'm going to have a few questions about the fact that we are allowing students who are the children of teachers into this system while we've got a backup of people from Lowell who want to go to specific schools. And it's been all over the newspaper, and it's making some city councilors uncomfortable, I know. And that is the practice of allowing teachers who live outside of Lowell to allow their children to attend Lowell schools. Now, in fairness, it's been going on since 1831. I just want you to know that. When a Tewksbury girl was allowed to go to Lowell High School, but she had to pay money to the city for the right to go. To the best of my knowledge, these teachers do not pay a tuition for their children to go to Lowell public schools. And I'm wondering, is this fair?
Well, you know, Jim, I think you make a good point. It's been going on a while, and I think that part of that is because we have such a great history here in Lowell in terms of our public schools. We're the first co-ed public school in the country, the first integrated public school in the country, the first to recognize the academic achievements of women with the Carney medalists that we have dating back to the 1800s. So this issue really has recently come to the forefront because of, exactly as you mentioned, the spacing issue, especially at the middle schools, that we just don't have the capacity, and that by law and by moral obligation, our responsibility is to educate the children of Lowell residents first. And you know, as a member of the current school committee, that's something I take very seriously. How we resolve that going forward, we're working on a plan for that. So part of it is looking at this. Really, it was never in writing anywhere or offered as a benefit, but it is in fact a benefit that our educators, our teaching staff get. So we want to negotiate that into our contracts going forward, if that's something that the teachers would like to have as a possibility. But that would always be given their space available. That the first space has to go to Lowell children. So right now we've got about 25 families. I think it's a total of 30 students who are not Lowell residents who are attending our schools. The school committee voted last spring, when this issue first came forward again as an issue of concern because of the spacing at the middle schools, to give a 1-year grandfather to those students who are currently in our system while we develop a policy that's got multifacets to it. One piece being the union piece of it. Another part being we voted to open Lowell High as a school of choice for communities, which means because we have the space at Lowell High School, we can take students from outside Lowell. And obviously the funds would follow those students to Lowell High. But in terms of those students who are in our elementary and middle schools, we are working on that policy as we speak, and we expect to have something in place very soon, because we want to give those families notice who are in our schools without being residents, you know, what's coming down the road.
Okay, how is it that many teachers living in Lowell do not get Lowell jobs? They have to go up to teach in Lawrence or Dracut or wherever. How is it that we don't give Lowell jobs to Lowell residents?
I'm not aware that we're not giving jobs to Lowell residents. I have not seen any data that would suggest that. The way we are looking at our whole HR department, I think part of the motivation is to streamline the process with what is really an understaffed department in the schools. We've got 3 people working for the hiring of 2,500. You know, we've got over 1,200 teachers, and we've got custodians, administrators, you know. So we are looking at improving our HR department overall. And I know that my colleague, Mr. Hoey, has had a motion asking that any qualified, certified applicant who applies, who is a Lowell resident, will be guaranteed an interview. So maybe there is something to what you're saying, that there has been a history of not hiring Lowell residents. I'm not aware of any data that would support that, but we are looking at, and that's one piece of it. For me, I'm much more interested in really trying to bring more diversity into our schools so that our staff better represent our communities, especially the demographics of our children.
Well, I think that diversity is, we have a lot of diversity amongst people who are certified to teach, because they come from all sorts of different backgrounds, racial types, and that type of thing. So it just seems to me that living in Lowell is a benefit that should be discussed.
Factored in, absolutely, absolutely. And I would never, I have no way dispute that. Living in
Mr.
Lowell,
Hoey said
you're part of our community, and that commitment to our community is living here and then teaching our students. It's definitely a benefit. But for me, the bottom line is going to be the best qualified candidates, and really being open to pursuing those candidates in a more structured way. Like, we have not been out doing the job fairs as much as we should be, really making that effort to tout what a great school district Lowell is, to try to draw the talent to the community. And those are some of the efforts we're making, as well as the motion by Mr. Hoey, which was supported by the committee, to make sure that qualified, certified Lowell residents get interviews, that they are at the front of the line in pursuit of our openings.
Okay, well, let me tell you, my father was a superintendent of schools here, as you probably know, and one of the qualification requirements was that he live in Lowell. He had to live in Lowell. So that's how I got into the Lowell Public Schools. And
We moved to Lowell because
he had to be here for the job. Right?
I would not be in favor of those kind of residency requirements. I think it would limit our ability to attract the best talent. I think that to consider Lowell residents, to give them that benefit of, we're going to talk to you, we're going to see your qualifications, that goes a distance for me, but I'm not personally in favor of residency requirements.
Okay.
So we might disagree on that, if that's something
No,
it's
it's not something that I don't really agree with residency requirements. I just think that we should give preference to a Lowell applicant in terms of giving them, as you said, an interview.
Right,
And
we are moving towards that. And I think there's a lot of other improvements who are going to go with that. For instance, we have a history in terms of, as an employer, the Lowell Public Schools, of not getting back to people, right? Because we've got so many openings, and we've got a very small staff in the HR department. So let's say you apply and we decide to move on with another candidate. Out of respect and courtesy, you should let the person know we've decided to move on with another candidate, or even to let people know, yes, we're interested in taking you to the next step. So that delay in action, I think, is harming our ability to get the best talent. That's another area we're hoping to make improvements on, that and the diversity hiring.
Okay. I was fortunate enough to be one of the lucky ones. I went to school here, I taught here, I had all my kids go to school here. I had all the luck. So it worked out very well for me, but that's part of my reason for the question. I was wondering if you know how hard our paraprofessionals work. They act as teachers in many cases and bring home virtually nothing for their time. Is there any plan to, I remember the signs that were sticking up all over Lowell during the negotiations to for paraprofessionals to get equal time from the union as teachers got.
Right.
But teachers ended up with, it seems, more money than the paraprofessionals did, and the paraprofessionals are really, in my opinion, underpaid for what they do.
Absolutely. I think that many of our paraprofessionals are the unsung heroes. I mean, if you have a good paraprofessional working side by side with a teacher, there's so much more you can accomplish in that classroom. My understanding, the union contract was a percentage. So if you get a percentage improvement and you're making 20,000 as opposed to making 60,000, obviously, there's a difference in what that feels like. But in terms of what we are doing for our paraprofessionals, which I think it's interesting that you would bring them up, we are really trying to move into that group and give them a pathway to advance their careers. Because many of our paraprofessionals are the diverse people. They are the key people that represent the demographics of our children, the second language learners and all that. So we have an education reimbursement program. We have created a path with Middlesex Community College, because obviously to go from being a paraprofessional to a teacher requires education and certification.
Right.
And that requires money. Right? So we provide courses for them. When they get into Middlesex, they're a cohort that gets extra attention. Because they're working in our schools all day. Right. So you're out of school at 3 and then you go take your own classes. And they've structured it so that they have the classes and the training around their typical work day, which is a school day, right? And they provide extra supports for them. And we're also tailoring their education to the needs of our children. So they're going to come out better prepared and better ready. So now we're working with UMass Lowell, because an associate's degree will not get you teaching certification. You've got to get your bachelor's.
Right.
So we're trying to expand that program, and I actually had a motion about that in the spring that was, again, passed by my colleagues. The HR department has been working diligently to reach out to the paraprofessionals currently in our system, and also to advertise to people who are in our adult education program, for instance, where they're, Lowell residents, improving their English language skills, working towards, getting their high school diploma if that's what they need, and then getting that group interested. Come be paraprofessionals in Lowell. We'll help you move up this path, advance your career so that you can be our teachers of tomorrow. So it's another way of developing that pipeline of residents who are qualified, certified to be our educators.
I had some paraprofessionals come up to me and talk to me about this, which is, they're kind of frustrated because they don't get paid enough to make a big difference in their own private lives, and that's something that they're concerned about.
And I would agree with you, they are very underpaid. But when you're looking at, our budget is 90% salary, if not even higher than that. And I would say that a good teacher, a good paraprofessional, they're priceless. It's not because we don't want to pay, it's because we're working within the constraints. And the needs never seem to, we don't have the resources to meet the needs and the challenges that our students and our families face as well as we'd like to. So we're always looking at ways to do it better, ways to do it smarter. At least that's my perspective on it.
Okay, well, I agree with it. They work so hard to get close to the students and children, and they make very little, and that's kind of a problem. And I guess my final question on it is does Lowell have a plan to pay them a little more equitably?
I don't know of such a plan to severely or significantly increase the salaries of any one group of our staffing. I think for me, my focus with the paraprofessionals in particular has been to really strengthen that career pathway for them, that they can move up that ladder of compensation by getting support to develop their skills, to get their college education, which it's expensive to get a college degree.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
And to try to help as much as we can with the costs, with the time management, because when you think about it, an educated paraprofessional is going to do that much better of a job in our classrooms. If you're
definitely
in the Middlesex Community College program, even if you're just getting your associates as the first step that you need toward that certification,
Right.
you're going to bring that knowledge with you every day that you're in the classroom. You're going to be so much stronger in terms of assisting the teachers and helping our kids. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's not ideal because I can't sit here and say to you, oh yeah, we want to give the paras 10,000 more next year.
Well, that would be nice, but
I mean, we do want to, but where's the funding to do
right,
it?
right.
I mean, that's the reality.
Okay. The superintendent had stated that he wants you to give him a report card, for lack of a better term, and it sounds like it's not an illogical thing for you to do. It seems like it makes sense.
Absolutely.
I kind of gathered from your coverage in the paper, and I realize that your coverage in the paper is not always exactly what you say, because they take pieces of it and
Right.
put it in. And my brother-in-law used to have a tremendous amount of difficulty with sound bites, because
well,
they would catch him on saying one thing and
take it out of context
and take it out
means
of
something
context.
else, yes.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that happens with the newspaper.
It has happened in the past. I don't think I've noticed it recently, though.
I saw you. I took it from what they wrote about you in the Sunday column, that I wasn't sure if you were for the report card or against it.
Oh, I'm absolutely. I think the evaluation process and doing really comprehensive evaluations is a key way that we move forward as a district. And I say it starts with the school committee, because the superintendent is, he's our one employee that we
Right.
evaluate.
Right.
But it filters down. The superintendent has to do comprehensive and effective evaluations of our principals. The principals have to do effective evaluations of our teaching staff. And I don't really know the quote you're talking about from the paper, but I think one of the things I brought up when they were discussing the whole evaluation process, because we just went through that with our principals and our principals with our schools, and one of the things I brought up was we've changed in the last 5 years, and it came from the federal government. It used to be just like a pass. Oh yeah, Jim's a great teacher. There you go. Check it off, right? Now we've got this very, some would say cumbersome system where you want to see, what were your goals? What evidence do you offer that you've reached your goals or you're making progress towards your goals? So it's much more in depth. And one of my comments, which I'm not sure if that's one you're talking about, was looking at where so many got, high grades, and I forget the word, that I wonder, are we really digging in deep? And now it's on us, because we just got the report from the superintendent of him presenting to us his first year, and granted it's only been 1 year, and it's a 2-year progress, a 2-year reporting system, evaluating system, not reporting.
Okay.
So the first year is kind of like his progress report. And he presented to us, this is how I think I've done on the goals set by the previous school committee. And now we're going to respond to that. So now it's on me as an individual and my colleagues as a committee to provide him with, really good feedback. Areas we'd like to see improvement, areas we think he's done very well at. And so that's the process we're in right now.
So what areas do you think he's done very well at? I have my own opinions, but
Okay, so it's a little premature because I haven't put this in writing yet. So I'm going to be, I'll tell you just a couple of things off the top of my head, but really the first step is to submit my portion in writing, and then it's going to be gathered collectively, and then I think the mayor presents it in a public hearing. I thought he handled the crisis in October with the texting issue at the high school. I thought he did a very good job of that. I was not on the school committee at that time. I was a active member of the little community involved. I went to those public meetings, and I thought it was a very sensitive issue, and he handled it in a very forthright way that was transparent. They said, we're going to have this task force, we're going to look at what happened, and we're going to figure out how we move forward. And what I've seen in the short time that I've worked with him as a school committee member, because I didn't get elected I didn't get served till January, we have made great strides at the high school in terms of communication and student engagement and talking about these difficult issues, about our racial differences, and how do we learn to work together and understand each other's backgrounds, be sensitive to those backgrounds.
Right.
And so I think he's done very well in that area.
Okay. I believe that he's done very well in getting parents re-involved with the schools.
That is a work in progress. We're definitely, yes.
Yeah.
I don't expect it's going to happen overnight. It's always been challenging. As you know, I came up from the Citywide Parent Council, so I was a parent, an involved parent for 5 years before I even thought of running for school committee. And I know how difficult it is in an urban environment where you've got people working multiple jobs, the language barriers, and I said this to the superintendent when I met with him the last time we met together, that it starts with his leadership at the top, and us, of course, backing him, that this is a priority, this message. We want you involved. We want you part of our school system because parent involvement equals student success. It
absolutely does. It's absolutely a major part of it. Are there any highlights of his term thus far that just stick out in your mind besides the two that you mentioned?
No, those are the top two that come to mind, that we're rebuilding that whole piece with the parent engagement. And that's working on the other side too with people who are reigniting the Citywide Parent Council.
Okay, well, I just am very pleased with the fact that he restarted the Citywide Parent Council. That I thought was important. I think it needs some tweaking in terms of how aggressive it is. I'd like to see it be a little more aggressive, but I'm not sure if it's doing well as it is or whatever. But
well, I think that you've got these parent volunteers. That's what the Citywide Parent Council is.
Right.
And so they need to get the momentum going to build up that constituency who sees that it is a route for them to have an input in the schools and be heard. And from the superintendent's end, he needs to push that with his principals and make time himself for the group so that they know that they have a seat at the table and their concerns are going to be heard.
Well, I was also chairman of the Citywide Parent Council at one point, and that was during Dr. Mraz's time. We were very aggressive, and one of the things we were aggressive with was the interaction of the university with the Citywide Parent Council, and I'd like to see that start.
Yeah, we need a representative from the university on
I'm going to
executive board. That would be, because we had that when I was involved with the Citywide Parent Council. Mary Batchegalupo was our UMass Lowell kind of community leader, and she was part of the executive board, and she helped to guide us and help us with advocacy and how to really tackle the issues that concerned us, to get buy-in from others, parents from other schools, and that's really where you build momentum, is when you've got a group of parents representing the district talking about an issue that concerns them.
Well, Mary was irreplaceable.
Exceptional woman, definitely.
Yeah, she was irreplaceable, and I'm glad they named the Victorian Garden after her.
Yes, it's a beautiful garden too. I haven't seen it recently.
It's very nice.
So, anyway.
I saw it over the Folk Festival. Thank you for coming. And
thank you, Jim, for inviting me.
We appreciate your being here, and I hope to see you on the floor of the school committee